but he also has 10 properties of his own. He's running a very successful company.
He has 50 years of experience, what it seems like, wrapped all the way down into like this 10 years.
Emailed him, got his flyer, put my name on it, passed thousands and thousands of them out across the neighborhoods.
I want to work for myself because you don't want to punch the clock, or you realize the glass ceiling is something's capping you.
I sold my equipment and got into project-based landscaping and did a name change as well.
Whether you're college educated or willing to read or has that just a sharp young mindset, can succeed in this industry.
You have to have your pedal down on marketing and sales. Because it's not a reoccurring business, you need to have like a marketing and sales.
A lot of people think that getting a W-2 job will help you get loans to buy real estate.
Today we interviewed Chase Gallagher. He is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and business owner outside of Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. We found out, actually, funny enough, he went to high school in the same area as Corey, and actually went to high school with Corey's younger brother, which was funny enough. We just saw him on social media doing his thing, building businesses, running his landscape design company, investing in real estate. He had a Cybertruck, and we're like, this guy seems like he's got a great story. Lo and behold, having him on the show, we found out we had a lot more connection than we thought we did. And today's episode, we really went into how the journey unfolded of a 23-year-old entrepreneur that is, I believe he's a millionaire. He talked about, potentially having a couple million in the bank, but he also has 10 properties of his own. He's running a very successful company. He's a snowbird at 23. Funny enough, for those of you who are listening, he spends most of his winter time down in Florida and then his springtime running the business back up Northeast. So it's interesting. I usually hear, 60-year-olds going down and being the snowbirds when they finally retire, but he's doing it at 23, living his life and running multiple businesses.
Yeah, Chase, I saw him on Instagram, like his stuff just pops up and he's really active. And talk about the power of personal branding. Him and I got into conversation and I found out that he actually went to the same high school as me. He's 23, I'm 33, so we were not there together, but he lived a few blocks away from where I grew up and he does a lot of his business in that area. And he started when he was 13. Like he was literally going around knocking on doors, doing a company called Buzz Cuts, where he would literally cut people's lawns at 13 years old. And he read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think he was like 14 or 15. And he was able to grow that business. Like, it's crazy thinking about what I was doing at 13. Like, not anything near running a business. Probably like trying to do a kickflip, right? Or like playing basketball every day. So he took this business that was like a landscaping business, cutting lawns, and he turned it into a landscape construction company. So he was doing hardscapes and decks and patios and backyards. And fast forward, he's 23 years old. He was buying, he bought a house hack. Then he brought properties in cash. And he's just like, he has 50 years of experience, what it seems like, wrapped all the way down into like this 10 years since he was 13 to 23. And he gives a lot of nuggets about how to run a business, how to scale, how to buy real estate, and then the power of his brand and how he got the attention of somebody who ran a $15 million development company because he knows how to brand himself online. Marketing, sales, strategies, it's all in this episode. Chase is a great guy. We're going to stay in touch with him. So we'll bring him in.
Let's do it. Chase, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are stoked to have you on the show, man. We talked a lot pre-recording, I'd say, and we have a lot in common, multiple streams of income that are similar, businesses that are similar. Grew up in the same area as Corey and his brother, and just very fun conversation coming today. So we're excited to have you on the show, man. And I might note that you are a 23-year-old entrepreneur, so it'll be cool for young guys looking to get to the next level to hear from you today.
Ryan, thank you for having me. Corey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's our pleasure. So let's start. I usually start it with say, hey, take me back to your younger days, right? But you are in your younger days. You just might be a little bit more seasoned on the entrepreneurial side. But just take me through early stages of life, dude. Not back to your kid, but like high school to transition out. Like, hey, I see something more than, working a 9-to-5 job. And you're kind of building your empire as you go in multiple different lanes. So take us through the mindset and how you kind of started your journey.
Yeah, really, it got started. I was always interested in money and making money, saving money at a very young age, like elementary school, and that would develop. And one summer, I would be Googling, "Hey, how can I make money?" Da da da. And this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, kept coming up, kept coming up. So I convinced my mom to order me this book. And in between seventh and eighth grade, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in the summer. And I was so naive back then. I like adapted this mindset, and I was telling all my friends like, "Oh, I'm rich now," because I thought like I had the juice, you know what I mean? But it was really just the very start. And so I read that book, and I wanted to earn more money because I wanted to buy real estate, and I knew I needed money to buy real estate, and so I started my lawn care business back then, right across the street from where Corey grew up, and I was 13 years old. I found a guy's online that was doing what I wanted to do. Emailed him, got his flyer, put my name on it, passed thousands and thousands of them out across the neighborhoods when I was 13 at night after school. Got my first 10 to 12 clients, and then it kind of took off from there.
Wow, man. To
This is
start at
great.
13 is insane. I mean, just to hear seventh and eighth grade, like, I hear these stories once in a while, and like sometimes you can roll your eyes and you're like, oh my God, was like this dude a prodigy kind of thing? Like you're starting at so young, but and I don't mean that in a bad way too, because I think a lot of people hear that and then they never get the full story. So I'm excited to go through, how it actually unfolded. But it's interesting. I just want to parallel this to me. So I don't know what it is, man. And we call it the juice, that little fire in you, but there's something that always pushes you to be a little bit different and to maybe pave your own path. But I started landscaping at a young age too. My dad, I mentioned to you, he runs a construction company. He's an entrepreneur. He has real estate. He has a bunch of different assets, but he also has a machine that like flows cash through it in certain ways. He has landscapers come through to the quarry to recycle their debris and turns it into loam. And then from there, he does all the site work and the excavation and things like that. So I've seen that at a young age. And, for me, when I was starting at like 14, I was 14, right? My parents were like, hey, they set me up with a great life. Don't get me wrong. Like, I never really felt like I had to want for anything, but as soon as I turned 14 and we were able to work, he's like, dude, you get out the door. You're going. Like, I'm not silver spooning you. Here is you paving your own way and finding out what you like to do. Like, he never pushed me. It's so interesting. I work like my life has transformed into more of like a corporate 9 to 5 job, and then real estate. The entrepreneurial life always crept up on me, right? It was in my blood. He's always like, dude, at some point you're going to come to me. You're going to say, hey, I want to work for myself, because you don't want to punch the clock, or you realize the glass ceiling is something's capping you from what your potential can be. And lo and behold, late 20s, I came knocking on the door. I was like, Dad, you were right. Like, how do I get there? And like, so I started learning from him. But basically my point in bringing all this up is I started at a young age too with landscaping, going out. Me and my buddies started a company called Three Kings Lawn Care, where every lawn is treated like royalty. That was our tagline. So shout out to the boys if you're listening. Where, dude, I worked for a landscaper. I saw what he was making, and I was like, well, he's paying me $15 an hour. What if I just go do the lawns? Like, I know how to do all of this. So we bought a lawnmower. We went to Home Depot, bought a lawnmower. My buddy had a truck. We bought the backpack blower, and we just went to houses, did the flyer thing. So I did what you did, bro. And I just want to bring that up to people, where it's funny. You don't hear all the stories of people's backgrounds and where they came from, but I started in the trenches as well. And I love it, dude. And it's to see you, read the book. I did not read the book, right? I read Rich Dad Poor Dad late 20s, and that's changed Corey's and my life for the better. And so they do parallel. It's funny how we are from different parts of the world. I mentioned to you, I'm from Massachusetts, you're from here, and we've read the same book. We got into landscaping. We're both running successful real estate companies and other companies. So some things in there, there's lessons in there for people to read between the lines. But Corey, did you have something? I think I might've cut you off.
No, yeah, I just think it's so some context for us is Chase and I actually went to the same high school, 10 years apart, right? I'm 33, Chase is 23. So he was probably, I guess I was already out of the house, but he was definitely tracking down these neighborhoods and going through them and cutting everyone's lawns. I'm curious how this turned, Chase, from a this thing that you were doing into a successful business, and you have more business experience from the ages of 13 to 23 than most people get in their entire life. So
Mhm.
what did you do to make this not just, hey, I'm cutting lawns, to a real landscape construction company, to the place that you're at now?
Well, there's probably dozens of things, but it was kind of a journey. And like one of the big turning points in my business career, Corey, was like I had grown. The original name was called Buzzcut Lawn Care, and so from 13 to 18, that was my company. I had grown the lawn care side of things, but as I got into like that 17 range, guys in my industry started to notice me, and I started forming, connections and relationships with older, experienced dudes within my industry. And so I started chatting with them. I always was asking questions, and they always hated lawn care. They had a lot of animosity towards it. They always talked down on it. And so I picked up that cue. And when I was 18, 19, I made the decision to sell all my lawn care. I sold the list, I sold my equipment, and got into project-based landscaping, and did a name change as well. And that was a huge stepping stone in my career. And this is in my industry, this is a huge thing that a lot of guys want to do, but they don't can't get past the fear behind, oh, what, I'm going to lose all my weekly lawn mowing clients. So it's a huge, like, you got to push through that fear. But I did that, and like that really set me off. So that year one, I did the same revenue I did the previous year, but my profit margin was way larger and I worked less. And so then I just kept compounding that. We got into COVID. My business took off. I hired a guy that I actually used to work for that had been in the industry for 30 years. And so we kind of built the crews beneath him with his connections. And that's how we're doing it.
Wow. I got a couple for you here, dude. One is, let me just, it's more of like an anecdote here, but I talk to my brother all the time, and he's college educated, smart dude, and just gritty, right? He's working, he picked up the shovel at 15, and he works with my dad, right? And eventually he'll take over the company, and he's putting his time, man. Now he's in all the machines, the excavators, the backhoes, all that stuff. He's running the show, but he started in the trenches, like digging the holes for the septic systems. Like there always has to be a grunt worker, right? To like, you have to go through the iterations. But what he's found, he told me, I was like, dude, like, what do you think is like the most, what are your biggest frustrations in this industry? What are your like, where do you see yourself fitting in? Like, why didn't you just go get a job? He can't handle anyone telling him what to do. doesn't want to punch in a clock. And he's very like, he he knows he can figure it out himself, and he can, like, I don't know how he it's hard for me to explain, but if you know my brother, he's hard nosed, super smart, but he goes through the industry, right? And he's realizing a lot of these blue collar guys, just there's the only people that understand business and like can really navigate are the people running the companies. A lot of the guys in the trenches, they're unfortunately, some of them are just uneducated, and they don't know what they're doing. So he basically said, dude, anyone that has, whether you're college educated or willing to read, or has that just a sharp young mindset, can succeed in this industry. However, most people are not willing to get their hands dirty, and they're like, I'll just go get a job and sit behind a desk and be comfortable, make some money up front. But he saw the long game, right? And it's definitely paying off for him now. He's building a custom home, and like, he's just so many cool things going on for him now. And I'm like, only because of the 10 plus years he put in the dirt to meet friends in the industry that they can barter and trade together, learn the trades himself. He can map a whole plan, dig the septic, like do all this crazy stuff. I'm like, bro, I have no idea what you're showing me right now, but it's awesome. And it's so cool to watch how like incredibly scientific he can get with it. And like, he's almost like an engineer in a way now too. And I'm like, you didn't study any of this. So really cool to see him going through the school of hard knocks. And I bring that up to say, like, back to you when you were 13, you wouldn't be where you are today without having put on, I guess you could say, the boots, and gone through, like, mowing the lawns, going through. You can't manage something that you really have never done, in my opinion. And you can't have these conversations with people and relate to people and coach a team if you've not gone through the trenches. And that's what Corey and I preach all the time to people going through real estate, and just bringing it back, is like, everybody wants the end result, to have the first rental property or the 10th rental property, but you can't get that without running the numbers, analyzing deals, checking out a bunch of different properties, building out a team, relationships, all the whole nine, right? But people don't want to put in the work. So I bring that up to you to say, like, the evolution of you switching your brain at 17 to say, hey, I'm going to rebrand from Buzzcut. I love Buzzcut, by the way. I think it is a little bit childish in the way of, like, dude, it's a haircut, right? It's a buzz cut, and you're cutting the lawns. Like, I get it. It's cheeky. It's cool. But you had the wherewithal to say, hey, I'm getting into rooms with bigger people now. And these guys, they need to take me serious. They see the young face, the baby face, the blonde hair, blue eyes. Like, they're like, okay, like, is this kid for real? Probably. But you have to kind of prove yourself in a bunch of different ways, get the sleek logo. You decide that, hey, I'm not going to be the landscape guy. I'm going to be the landscape construction guy. And there's a lot more profit in that, right? If you run it the right way. So I have a lot of different thoughts all of there. I just want to kind of paint the picture of kind of our stories parallel. And it's so cool to watch someone like you at 23 to be running your own company and hiring. So I guess taking it back to that pivot point again, right, where you mentioned, hey, I rebranded, did this. What do you think not only made you pivot, but what do you think led to your success and you to keep going? Because you did lose all your, right, all your clients. You basically had that fear, like, I have to let these guys go and I'm moving to the next stage. So what did you do to ensure your success, I should say, day in and day out, to make sure the next level was a success for you?
Yeah, one of the key things, at least in my specific niche, project-based landscaping, is you have to have your pedal down on marketing and sales. Because it's not a reoccurring business, you need to have like a marketing and sales forefront to your mindset, to your business. You have to be on top of it. So that's one thing that's kept my business growing and moving is just that mindset behind just focusing on that.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
I'm curious about you're growing this business, you're hiring crews, but along while you're doing this CMG, you're buying real estate. Now, a lot of people think that getting a W-2 job will help you get loans to buy real estate, right? Like that's the thought, like, oh, go get a good job. And this helped us. Like, we had a W-2 job, we got loans, we bought real estate, but you have 10, I think it's maybe more, you can correct me if I'm wrong, over 10 properties now, you're 23. How were you able to find these properties, manage the business, grow your real estate portfolio while you were growing your, landscape construction company?
Yeah, to simplify it, a lot of hard work, tons of 15, 16, 18-hour days, lots of mistakes, which cost you money in business, real estate, cost you money. And just keeping the momentum going, man, just having the want and the action behind my want and my goals, to simplify it. But I use my seasonality to help me grow my different businesses, right? Like we're crazy busy in the springtime with CMG landscaping. I'm not buying any real estate. We're slower in the winter months. I'm focusing on my online presence. I'm focusing on my real estate portfolio. So I kind of balance it out that way. And then I will, use my in-house teams to demo houses or junk out houses, or obviously regrade, fix drainage problems, do all the exterior work, roof work we do. So stuff like that.
Very
Got it.
cool.
How was let's talk like strategy of buying your first couple rental properties or your first couple properties. Like, were were you going off market deals? Were you finding them on market because of the relationships you created through CMG? Like, you're seeing all these homes, right? How, like, tactfully, I'm asking, like, what are the first couple moves that you make to buy, to get your portfolio, your rental portfolio specifically, off the ground?
So the very first deal I did, it was two properties. It was an owner finance deal. I was 20 years old. I was paying my old landlord rent for my land lot that I was renting for my CMG landscaping business. He wanted to sell off the back half of his property. I was so eager, man, because I waited since seventh grade to buy real estate. I had my own separate savings account with a chunk of money in it, and I was ready. So he was talking about this deal, how he had it lined up to this other guy, but he wasn't coming up with a down payment. And I asked him a couple questions, and the naive Chase Gallagher was like, "I'll give you 10 grand more than whatever he's giving you." Like, as I'm paying him his rent check, and he was like, "Oh, well, let me wait. Like, I want to. I told him I'd do it. Give me a couple weeks." I was like, "All right, bet." So he got his couple weeks. I followed up. The guy didn't come up with the down payment, and he was asking for a lot of money. He was asking for $150,000 down payment. He was going to finance this note over 10 years. Uh, and then a balloon payment at the end. And so I we got into due diligence period. I told him I was interested. I went to like a buddy's engineer's dad, chatted with him, my lawyer. I went against what I should have done, and I took a lot of risk at a young age. But my lawyer said, "Don't sign this contract. Don't buy this property." All this stuff, and I just kept wanting it and wanting it. So I negotiated. I ended up, lowballing the original offer, so that helped me tremendously. I gave him $85,000 down, and we had a monthly payment of about $2,500 plus a balloon at the end of this term. So it was two properties in downtown. It's raw land. It totals 32 acres, and that's where we store my equipment. I have a couple other things going on that property, and that has been the best deal I've purchased to this day, hands down, the best deal. Um,
Interesting.
and we can get into that as well. But then, and that was 20. And so going back to the financing, W-2, I knew I had to have a W-2 income and show, profit on my tax return when I was 17, because sit on my lawnmower and watch Bigger Pockets, and they always had these entrepreneurs on. And so I knew I had to have 2 full years of a W-2 and positive returns on my tax return. So I started at 18. And let's say I made at 18, I made 50, 60 grand on paper. And then 19, I made like 120. And so literally the day I filed my taxes, I took that, went to my mortgage broker, got pre-approved, and I started shopping for conventional mortgage, single family homes in Downingtown with 5% down. And I looked at so many properties, and God bless my realtor. And there was one in Downingtown I went to across from Applecross, Corey. My realtor said, "Hey, go look at this." Like she had to go do something else. I walked in, little single family house, $315,000 in an HOA. And that was my first property. It was like an old woman lived there. I want to say it was listed for 325. We offered 315, 5%. I'm a strong buyer, and all it needed was like light upgrades, like all new paint, a little bit of flooring, and some like new towel racks and things like that.
So you, in this deal, did you live in the property and rent it out to like roommates, or like what was the strategy? Or did you immediately get tenants in there? You put 5% down. So I'm assuming that you at least had to intend live there for a period of time. Like, was it a
Yes,
house
sir.
hack, so to speak?
Yeah, it was a house hack. My intentions was to live there for a full year, and I did live there for a period of time while I was doing my renovations. The whole house was covered in wallpaper essentially, so that took, myself was out there. My mom would come after work, help me out, and we painted that entire house. We did the little, upgrades to the bathroom fixtures and things like that.
Cool, man. Okay, so I want to talk about this the scaling. There's a if you I'm sure you see this stuff on social media because you're like really tapped in on social. There's like honestly it's really funny. There's like satire accounts. They're like buy 10 rental properties before you're 30 years old, right? Like I don't know if you got tagged in any of them, but I saw that one of your viral posts was like bought my 10th property before I'm 23, and I was looking at it today because I'm like this is fucking great. Like the amount of people that are seeing this, like he's actually doing the thing, but there's people that are like, oh yeah, you make it look so easy, right? So my question for you is like, you lived in, you did what I did. I was 26, but I bought a 3-bed, 2-bath. I lived in one bedroom, rented out the other bedrooms. I lived for free. It was, I mean, to this day, one of the best financial decisions I've ever made. But from there to go and to find more properties. So talk to me about like property 2 to 5 and scaling. Cause now I'm sure it's a lot easier for you to buy properties. You make you show a bunch of money that you're making in your business, and you probably have access to a lot more. But a lot of people listening to our show are in that 2 to 5 range, and they want to know, how do I get those next few?
Yeah, so Corey, back then when I had those, 3 properties when I was 20 uh and 21, I was like in my head, it was so much work to get these three up and going, and it was like just a fight. I felt like it was like a fight. So back then when I had 3 properties, I was like, how the hell am I supposed to get to 10 or 12 properties? Like, how the heck do these people do this? And so really it just like Gary Vee uses this word, it's like gusto. You got to just get up and want it and get to it every day. And so when I was 21, I hired a real estate mentor. His whole thing was cash on cash return. So I started going out into like, simple words, shittier markets, C and D class neighborhoods, buying in cash for the cash flow, the cash on cash return. And so I bought two in one deal. Then at the end of that year, I bought a foreclosure in Pottstown. And so I guess that was like it started in December, but it closed in February 1. And then that's 2023, and then 2023 I bought like 6 properties, 5 or 6 properties, almost all value add. One of them was a duplex, and so last year was a ton of work, ton of problems, tons of mistakes, lots of money, but we got those assets stabilized and rented out. And so this year's like that comeback year. All the rents are coming in, debt's getting paid down. We're getting ready to launch and buy up tons of shit in 2025.
Okay, so I'll let Rye chime in a sec here, but I just wanted to give people some context. Is like the formula. This is the formula, and you're doing exactly this. You start a business, you have your business grow, and the goal is for it to grow each year, right? Business is tough; it doesn't necessarily do that, but the point is you grow your business, you pay yourself from the business, you take the money from the business, and you go buy real estate, and you're doing that. And then you're able to get to the point where you can go buy real estate in cash so that you have paid off properties. And you did it a lot before a lot of people. Most people are like leverage, but you're buying paid off property. You're paying off the property in cash so that your $200 a month in cash flow passive, like is kind of as passive as it can get, right? Like that becomes maybe $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month. And so that's how you really stack it on the back end. And I think personally, that's people might think you're being really aggressive, but you're actually being extremely conservative by doing that. You're just taking the money, you're paying off properties, and then you're able to collect a significant amount of cash flow so that you can then go borrow against that in the future. So I think that's great. The delaying of the gratification for me is what stands out. Like, this is not, and you mentioned the gusto, like having the foresight to see 18 months down the line, because you're right. None of these properties that anybody buys, you're either rehabbing it for a period of time, 6 to 12 months, or maybe sooner if you're really good, or you need a seasoning period of this property for rents to grow a little bit, for you to pay it down. You have a little bit of more wiggle room. So I think the story is awesome, man. I'm curious about your goals with both CMG and your real estate. You mentioned you're going to be buying a lot more in 2025. Like, where are you trying to go with this thing?
Great question. Well, everything I just want to grow, and so I know that's very vague, but one of my goals, Corey and Ryan, and this is just a materialistic goal of mine. It doesn't have like soul meaning, is to buy a jet. And so a lot of what I've been doing these past 2 years is to like literally, like you said, I'm gonna wait on the gratification. I'm going to put this 200 grand into a value add house. I'm going to put this chunk of money into this foreclosure. I'm going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to deal with pain in the ass tenants and bullshit on bullshit and code enforcement so that I can like have that jet down the road. And so that's like one of my big, like shorter term, like, hey man, this is why I'm pushing so hard day to day. And just like grow a portfolio. So if I want a $3 million jet, I would like to have 5, 10 million in real estate. So the appreciation on that millions of real estate can kind of outweigh or decrease my depreciation on the jet.
Love it, man.
Dude, I love
Okay.
it.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Am I allowed to jump in here?
You're allowed, brother. You're
Great.
allowed.
Thanks, dude. I love it, dude. I have most people that listen to the show hear about it. So the day I get it, it's gonna be great. But the Lamborghini effect, right? So it's like that has no material or I don't know what you said, like soul value in there, right? It's a materialistic thing, but for me, that's my check it off the bucket list, made it in my own right kind of way. Yours is the jet, right? It's awesome. My uncle bought a jet, and it's so interesting, right? Because when someone close to you is able to do that, you're like, whoa, dude, like how the hell did you do that? And it's not one answer, right? It's the whole life story, right? There's so many things, and it all comes down to risk at the end of the day. The ability to manage risk and take a shot and have those shots be successful, and then over and over do that, right? So it's interesting, man. But you're not able to take advantage of certain opportunities or realize their opportunities without going through the trenches every day and like hitting the hammer on the nail, right? And just like going after it and just keep chipping away. So I think it's a great goal, and I think life changes. I all have these goals, but when you get to my age, I'm not saying I'm much older than you, but I got 10 on you, and so like you get married, kids start coming in the picture. Not for everybody, but like life changes a little bit. Like, whoa, my happiness actually has changed a bit. What I thought I needed, it's not, some of the days, man, it's so weird. Corey and I get up out of bed and like this thing really drives us, the whole business that we're running, and just to see what we're capable of, I think, in a way, right? And to be like, most people in the world, they go to work for someone else, and it is easy. It sucks to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, you have to go to work, and you're like, some people don't like what they do. And the act of going is tedious and it's hard, right? It's way, way harder to run your own business. It's light years harder because the safety net's gone. You're fighting every day for the dollar, but then also you're defending your business in a way too, of like people always coming at you for certain things. And like, then there's customer service, like making sure your brand is shown in the right light. And if you're pissed off, you have to make sure you're responding in the appropriate way, because one bad thing can ruin your reputation. So there's so much to this game, right? And it's the constant flowing of cash that you see from your 9 to 5. That doesn't come with the business. You got to make that money. You have to like figure out how to serve people to go find that cash, right? So that's the game that's fun. And it's like, it's a constant
Some days
battle.
it's fun.
Yeah, some days it's fun. It's like to me, I attribute this to video games. And so I don't know, I didn't realize how much I loved them, but I do. Like, growing up as a kid, I always played them. And for whatever reason, it was a way I could challenge myself. Didn't rely on anyone else, right? Like, it's me, like, let's just call it like a one-person game. I knew that if I studied the game, like the confines of the rules, and like navigated, obviously there's tips and tricks out there on how to play through the game, but you can grind whenever you want. Like that's your time to go do your thing. And so to elevate to the next level and to see your character change, it's so interesting. A lot of people go and hide their life and go into the virtual world of video games, right? Because they can be this big powerful being, right? But imagine trying to do that in real life, what we're all doing, and like we're elevating to the next level and watching our. It's hard for me to look back, like to reminisce and be like, yo, I came from this and like we did this, because some of the days are so hard, and it's like what seems like a little step to you is a giant leap to someone else. And so it's just so interesting watching us as the main characters. Like the moral of this is like we're the main characters of our own story, of our own game. We're navigating through and like going through this life and balancing our social lives with our relationships, with our businesses, with our 9-to-5s, potentially with our investing. And there's so much to this. And so that's kind of one of the reasons I love getting on conversations and calls like this with people like you, dude, because we're fighting the same fight. So this is like music to our ears, right? Just even being able to talk about this, like, dude, thank you for the hour therapy session, bro. Like I can't talk to guys, you can't talk to half your family about this stuff, right? And you're like, they're like, how's work? And you're like, this good. And like, if you get into it, you really want to know, bro, like, do you want to know about the 9-to-5 or you don't want to know about the business? You want to know who punched me in the face today? Like how I dealt with it. So some people do like it, right? An aspiring entrepreneur really wants to know. They're like, no, like tell me more. And like in holiday parties, you can start, you got that one cousin or something like that. And they really dive in and it's the best. Then other times it's like the small talk, like, man, like it's good. Like, want to talk about crypto or some shit. Like, so let's just like go into the other side. So I say all this to say it is cool to bring her back to the jet story. I like dangling the carrot. And I think people need something to chase. And that's not to be confused with Chase Gallagher, but you need to be able to chase something and have that carrot that they're going after, whatever it may be. And that might change along the way. But if there's nothing to chase, there's no drive within you, right? Or other people have a chip on their shoulder. I bring this up all the time. Some people like him, some people hate him, but like the Brady effect where dude reached the pinnacle, bro. Like he's the best, but he's still pissed off that he was drafted 199th in the 6th round and that people think that he's not the best. And so he goes to another team, wins another Super Bowl. It's something, you got to be a little crazy to be in this game is all I'm saying. And like we're wired differently. So I just want to bring that up and say, you're killing it. I appreciate the transparency for such a young guy. Like we've studied a lot of the same things and we're doing things in different ways, but to realize there's stories out there like this. It's so cool, man. And you're now down in Tampa. You're a young snowbird. We were asking, I was like, hey, where do you spend most of your time, bro? And you're like, yeah, well, some of the days in the cold months, I'm down in Florida, and the warm months, I come back up for my business. I'm like, you're 23, dude. We're usually talking like it'll be like a 67-year-old just retired is a snowbird. That as a kid, that's what I thought. So kudos to you, man. You're putting in the work. You've done it consistently over time and disciplined yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's what sets you apart from others. And that's what entrepreneurs set themselves apart, right? You can't wake up and do this one time. You have to do it every single day and force yourself to get better, even when you're getting pulled back from things that are holding you to your previous self. So I don't know, man. It's a lot of thoughts, but
Ryan, you hit a lot of you hit a lot of those key points, dude, right on the nail. Because it's like, as an entrepreneur, it's way like, obviously you get into business, you're a young guy, like that's why, like, Corey, Ryan, like, I don't know about your dad, Ryan, but a lot of these guys, these landscapers, contractors that are 56, 65, when I was 19, I'd try to go and talk to them, and they'd be these like grunchy old, like, hangover, just fucking growling at you type of dudes. And I was like, why are they like this? And so, but now can understand. I'm not like that, but I can understand, like, all right, man, this guy's been beat up by these 8 different things coming at him all the time, and employees, training, lawsuits, da 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 da, whatever it is, family issues. Um, so yeah, man, but that's business. And one thing I like to do is kind of preach gratitude. What are you grateful for? What are you truly grateful for? For me, that's my words, my breaths, and my steps. And so anything beyond that, even if it's a problem, I'm still blessed to have it.
Totally. I'm wondering, Chase, about your strategy to market. So like how do you get new clients now? Because there's a lot of people that are listening. They're either trying to get deals, they're trying to get more clients for their business, leads, marketing. Maybe at this point in time, it's referral based for you. I don't know. You tell me. But like, as you were on the come up with CMG, as you're trying to create new clients, is it still the same concept if you're going door to door and like walk me through what it's like gaining new leads and gaining new clients maybe a few years ago and then today?
So a few years ago, beginning of COVID and during COVID, it was so easy to get calls. We were getting so many calls in a week. We started charging for estimates, $100 comes off the price of your project, da 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 da. And we would get like 15 to 30 calls a week. And so post COVID, obviously the demand has slowed down and you have to adapt to that. So in pre-COVID and in COVID, it was mostly all organic. I was still doing some social media. I was heavy on networking. I still am to this day. Post-COVID, that demand slowed down. And so we started implementing paid advertising, whether that's Angie's Leads, Google Guarantee, obviously my website. We get tons of websites traffic, Facebook, whether that's groups and just Facebook groups, yard signs, trucks presence, and obviously referrals are our best lead generation source.
Love it,
That's really
man.
cool, dude. I think it's so interesting because I'm watching the changing of the guard, I think, in a way, of my dad's business into my brother's hands. Like he's my, not that he ever wants to give up his baby. He'll probably be pissed I'm even talking about this because like, dude, I'm never stopping working, right? But he's not the grungy guy that you mentioned. Like he's clean, got the right head on his shoulders, but he's at the age where like he got hit with the hiring, the developing of people, dealing with his schedule, right? Over years, like 30 years, right? I don't care who you are, 30 years of doing something very similar every day. You're like, dude, that takes a toll on a guy. And you wrap your identity into it a lot too. It's just really interesting. And so like some days I'm like, Dad, like we kind of talked about life and stuff. And I'm like, what do you want to do? Like you're going to retire? Like you want to go do anything? Like, he's like, nah, man, like I'm doing it. Like I like what I do. So it's interesting. And I say that some people wouldn't understand that, but I do. What I understand about this is our I want to bring this up to you because I think you probably feel the same way. I mentioned having a child, and that's why I can relate it to this. Our business is a baby that we're raising and we're nurturing. And it sounds weird to say that, but there's so many. We brought this thing from inception to from nothing and slowly taught it lessons along the way and are bringing it through the stages of life with us. And it's so interesting because I understand not wanting to let go, right? Like for your pivot, that's what I kind of mentioned earlier, from your pivot at 17 to go to the next level of your brand. It's a big thing, dude, to decide to do that. Corey and I did the same thing. We were once the Weekly Juice. We had our little like cartoon logos and we were looking at each other like, dude, man, like what is like people, I don't think they understand who we are. Like we want the juice because it differentiates us. And when you get in a room, people always talk about the juice. Like we've had guys that we met in person, like, oh, there's the Juice Boys. Like they remember us and you need that. But we're like, what encompasses everything? It's a simple change. We kept the W, just changed it to wealth. Like that's what we talk about every day. You're building businesses, you're investing, your relationship capital, all of it's comprised in that thing. Helps for SEO as well. So we changed it, but then we put the flame logo. And Corey and I, we haven't really talked. I do want to talk about this on this podcast because I'm gonna make a video about it. But our logo is a J, right? But it's orange. It's a flame. It looks like a flick of a lighter. And at first I don't think I really truly understood the meaning of it. And I think back in of our whole story of like what has happened to us. And we got in this game first by studying the FIRE movement. And kind of like you, we read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but we realized there's some people were living a different life. How could we do that? We had to change our mindset from consumer to investor, but also that financial independence, retire early. Like, whoa, we could be 40 or 35 and kind of be financially free. Like, what is this concept? So we studied that. And like, as we got into the evolution, we started investing in real estate, going through it. And dude, one of the life or the climaxes, the changing moments in our story is our second duplex, if you will, second or third, burned to the ground. It caught on fire one night. We got a call from tenants and we had to go through the whole process of psychologically, holy shit, how do we deal with this? But then monetarily, how do we deal with these numbers? Are we going to be able to offload this property or how are we going to be able to clean it up? How do we make sure everyone is safe? And there's just a whole slew of things, right? But then we came out on top. We ended up doing really well and we sold the property to another investor who made it a quadplex, I believe. And we're still friendly with that person and the agent that did it. So like it came full circle. We got another couple of properties with the money from that. So we made out okay, but most people would stop at that, bro. And that's what I want to bring up. Like Corey and I were talking about the other day. It's like, this is where people stop and they get afraid. But we didn't get afraid and we went from 3 to 70. And we said, F it. We're going to get hit with everything, dude. Like we're getting smoked on a daily basis with random stuff. Oh, the roof goes. Oh, this thing's leaking. Oh, this person's pissed about this thing. This person didn't pay the rent. Whatever it is, right? You deal with it. But I say like it's once you zoom out, and Corey was kind of mentioned this to me days, like like if you zoom out from our story, dude, it all comes down to the perseverance and like keeping that internal drive of us holding each other accountable and going. So that's where the fire from our logo comes. And I'm glad we made the pivot and the change. I bring it back to the branding. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because it encapsulates our whole journey, dude. And it's a little subtle twist on it. And so for you, like that was us to get to the next level. And that's when we started building the business, not just the podcast to have the podcast. How can we strategically use our relationships to build other businesses, whether it's real estate, whether it's the coaching program, whether it's having sponsors from the podcast? Like, it's not a hobby anymore. This is our livelihood and our business. And so I see a parallel to your story where we did the same thing, dude. And I just wanted to bring it up because I never really shared the full like reason behind our brand with anyone. So I appreciate the change of pace and having to like go into bigger rooms and not, you have to come across professional and be able to stand with
Yep.
the big dogs. So
And a lot of it too is and I want to get back to that full fire thing, but a lot of it too for a lot of people, even to myself to this day, is like feeling like you're worth that. Like a lot of times, guys, especially in the home services industry, they can't imagine charging X amount for that type of, service or product or whatever the job is. And this is a huge thing. A part of CMG University is like you want to attract the right client, you want to build the right brand, build the right team, raise your prices, understand you are worth it. And so like that's a huge thing. And then going back to your fire thing, that's a huge part of like getting to the next level. Like you said, man, I've had shit where like it's like, why do I own real estate, man? It's like the craziest stuff. And so obviously you internalize that problem. What's the best solution? Let's get to it. And then you simmer down and then you just kind of keep punching away at it so you can keep building. That's what I'm in the process now. Like, and then there's another point I want to hit on there. It's like, um, after a couple million and like in my situation, I have no kids, I have no wife. So it's not like I have like a big monthly, you know what I mean, living expense. Like technically, could I retire today? Sure. But once you get to that point, then you got some juice behind you. Now you really want to see like how much you can take it. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of guys get to that point, even myself, I want to retire early, da da da. But then it's like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna wake up, go get coffee, work out, go to a different steakhouse for 5 days straight, and then I'm going to be bored as hell. So it's not going to work out.
when you become so good at something, dude, it's impossible. At the top of your game, this is why I bring it back to the athletes. It's so hard for them to retire. So for you, like, most people think of when retirement of going on the beach. That gets old after 5 days, dude. Like you mentioned this. I love the steakhouse thing, by the way. I'd be doing the same thing. But then I'd be like, okay, what else? Dude, I need something that like, I'm bored. Like you're an A player, dude. You got this, you're a high performer and you've mastered your craft. Right. And so at that point, I think that's why a lot of gentlemen and women, when they get to a stage, they give back and they're like, yeah, you know what? I don't want you to pick my brain, or I don't want to grab coffee with you, but I will let you into my knowledge. Like, if you have an interesting story, I want to hear about it. How can I help you? Dude, I'll sit with someone for an hour. I don't give a shit. And it's going to be a lot of word vomit because we have so many things going on in our brains on a daily basis, but I'll give you a lot of nuggets and that'll help you along the way. I can give you a little bit of a roadmap. Bringing it back to the retirement conversation that from the beginning thought of this is, when you get to a certain level, you think you'll retire, but you won't. And I brought it back to the pro athletes getting to a certain level. When you win a Super Bowl, right? Like you're at the top of your game, but you always hear the announcer saying, well, what do you think about next year? It's the weirdest question to ask someone at the top. Like when they reach the top, it's like, I don't know, dude. Like there's so many different versions of me that I can give to the world and that I can help benefit. And so I think it's an interesting kind of phase you get into life. I always think like, hey, when I get to this stage, what do I want to do with my life at that point? We have one mentor. It's more so one of Corey's mentors, but he sold a big brokerage, and now he is like, I have money that came in. I have all these things, and like, I don't know what to do. I just feel like I have a gift to give the world. And he translated his story to say, you know what? I just want to go stand on stage and share my story and see who I can benefit and who I can help build a business and sell a business, right? And so you build a brand off that. So I say that to say a lot of high performers at the end of the day, and you see these guys from the NFL or other things like that, they don't really stop and like crawl under a rock and just retire. They'll go find something else. You see a lot of people go into broadcasting. We found that a lot of them, not a lot of them, but like a couple that we know, they realize there's a gap in financial literacy in the league, and people come across a ton of money and they don't know what to do with it. And if they only last in the league for 3 years and you have a couple $1,000,000, how do you spread that around and make it last for your life? So they created financial literacy programs and investing platforms and real estate companies to help these guys that leave the league come in. And so a couple of people that we've had on the podcast, Devin Kennard, Brett Hundley, and then we just recently had Marcus Colston, who used to play for the Saints. And so all these guys are doing these things. It's so cool, involving personal finance and helping, their brothers from the league, like really figure out the next stage of their lives. So I say that to say I love the conversation. I think the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, great book, but it also gets you in the mode of like, hey, I'll never, I'll be on the beach soon. I won't have to do anything. Once you reach that, for listeners, you'll find yourself at a predicament where you're kind of an ace at what you do. And it's hard to, it's a double-edged sword. You don't want to leave the game because you still feel like you can give it more and maybe test yourself a little bit further and maybe become the 100 millionaire, the billionaire, right? Get 3 jets, like whatever it is. There's got to be enough at some point, and that's like an internal. That's a whole other 3 hours we could get into. But I just think good point to bring up.
Yeah, I also want to talk more tactfully a little bit about, like you mentioned, Chase, your pricing and like how you decide on the services that you would provide, in specifically in your landscaping construction company. Like, where do you draw the line on what you do and what you don't do, and then how do you decide the pricing? And I ask this because Ryan and I, in our coaching program, we have a very defined thing that we do now. We teach people how to buy their first or next rental property in the next 3 to 6 months. That's our coaching program. Now there's ascension and descension from that. But my point is that we have to turn people away that are not a good fit. And it's hard to do that in business. That's probably not talked about a lot. So how did you decide on the part of the market that you're playing in, how to actually raise those prices as opposed to decreasing them in order to gain more trusting clients, the ones that you really want to work for?
Great question, Corey. So a couple things to hit on this question. Number one, when you get into project-based landscaping or any sort of construction, you're doing a skill and a project that most homeowners cannot do. Therefore, the value is higher to them. Lawn mowing, trimming a shrub, mulching garden beds, they can do that, so it's less of value to them. So that's number one. You're in a different bracket. Number two, any guy can buy a lawnmower and a trailer and go cut lawns like I did at 13. On the project-based landscape construction, most of the time, you need $250,000, 400 grand worth of equipment just to kind of have an operation. So there's a backing there, and it puts you in a different level. And therefore you get to charge for that. And so that's how it is. Now, on the pricing thing, what I was looking at in my head when I was 19 years old was, all right, Chase went out and did a drainage project. Him and two buddies, two helpers, made $2,500 in a day. Stace and these two guys worked all week mowing lawns, and I made 25, 3,500 bucks within a week's time frame. And I worked 62 hours that week. Per day revenue, it's a lot higher for project-based landscaping. And that's where it goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Yes, the per day is higher. You have to have the sales and marketing to keep those days filled, but your profit margin's way higher. Your value to the client is way higher. And so that's what I noticed. And so I went all in on that.
Love it, man. I want to ask you, as we kind of wind down the show here, about the networking aspect and the relationships. I think that there's a notion that the people that have made it don't actually want to give back and help out, but I think that's completely wrong, especially in the real estate game. So what value do you put on networking and relationships and learning from those who have done what you're looking to do? It seems like you've paid for mentorship, you've paid for coaching. Most 20-year-olds, 22, 23-year-olds are like, I'll figure it out myself. I don't see the value in that. So talk me through the mindset shift that you had.
So a couple things, couple questions you had there, Corey. So number one, like as corny as it sounds, and I don't like corny shit, but your network is your net worth. And so what happens is, as you're a business owner on social media, whoever you are, as you grow your network, what's the difference between Chase Gallagher at 19 and a guy in my same industry at 62? That guy knows 800 more people than I know at 19, right? I can still lay a paver patio basically the same way he can. So essentially a lot of it's your network, your relationships. And so that can create so much value because it's really not what you know, it's really about who you know. So like you guys mentioned, you're in development projects and XYZ. Like I don't need to know I own a property, the acreage that I'm going to develop at one point. I'm a landscaper. I'm not a developer, but I met a guy that runs $15 million development projects. So he's kind of guiding me through that. And so like that's just one example. There's a million other examples. But the more you grow your network, and this is one thing I tell my CMG University guys, get out there and meet new people, whether it's at your coffee shop, cigar lounge, BNI networking group. I was a member of that for 2 years. What will happen is, and I'm all about building real relationships. Meet someone like we are today, build a real relationship. If you're able to help them, help them. If you're not, then say that to them. And at some point, your revenue will increase down the road, whether you're a real estate investor, whether you're a landscaper, a house cleaner, because the more people you know, the more people know you and what you do, and when they need something, they're going to call you.
Love it, man. Yeah, I think. Do you have any advice for somebody who's looking to network more? There's people that talk about like, go out there and meet people, right? But I'm curious about maybe what you did for somebody who's a developer to give you the time and attention that like they want to hang out with you or they want to be in the room with you, or like, is it a monetary exchange? Like, hey, I'll pay you for your time. Is it, like,
So
is it
for that
you?
for that developer
Yeah.
situation, again, this is why I'm so big about, and I preach social media to my people. So I was picked up by Fox News from like a different article. They saw an article on me about how I didn't go to college, started my business. So I went to New York City on Fox News. It was a segment about that. This guy, that watches Fox News, saw me, sent me an email. And as you guys know I get tons of messages every single day that are just not BS. I want to help people, but the link in my bio is how I can help people. Um, and so this guy was emailing me. I looked at his email. I'm like, all right, what does he want? Like he's a developer. But then I went on LinkedIn and LinkedIn him, and I was like, all right, maybe I should talk with this guy. Called him, and he was like on a hike with his dog. We were chatting, and I mentioned a tax code that my previous real estate mentor got all this, refund money during the Trump era. And this guy said, yeah, I wrote that tax law. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I was like, who is this guy? Then I started doing research and we chatted, and ends up he has a house in Naples. So now we were hanging out down there. And so we built a relationship, a couple calls. Then we hung out on his boat for the day and we got to know each other. We both have very similar health issues, growing up. And so the connection's even stronger. And now it's like, hey, man, we're boys. What can we help each other with? And this is all about how I build real relationships. Well, Chase Gallagher's built an audience online. Terrence wants to raise money for his new $15 million project in Fort Myers. He doesn't have any social media. And so, like, I'm helping him with that. I'm connecting him with my people, and vice versa.
Okay, so that's exactly what I was looking for. And for people that are listening, to how do you actually build the relationship? Well, there's people out there that run multi-million dollar companies and have no presence in the new social media era, right? Chase has 30,000 followers on Instagram and knows how to create content to get attention. And I think the melding of that, I did a speaking engagement last night through a community, and my biggest thing was personal branding. Like you putting your message out there and getting in the rooms with the right people and providing value and working with people who are a few steps ahead of you, and just continuing to knock doors and to write down and follow up with these people. And all of that is a system that's built, and you have a skill set to be able to do it. So I think it's brilliant, man. I think congratulations. It's funny when there's people out there that are like, well, somebody's so young, what do you know? And it's clear in these last 10 years that you have had so much learning about business, and you can speak about business as if it doesn't matter. You're 50 years old in the business world, right? Like, you've been doing it for so long. So I just want to say congrats. I think it's amazing. The last question from me, you mentioned you wanted to buy a jet. You mentioned growth, and I really like to dig into people about what drives them. And I'm curious, what is your why? What gets you out of bed every morning? Like, what is the purpose of all this? Because, dude, like, at the end of the day, like, none of this really matters unless you have a strong desire, something back there telling you the reasoning behind it, right? Like, monetarily and cars, and like, what does it mean? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, a couple things here. One thing to point on the cars and stuff like that, for the young guys listening, yeah, do it right, buy the car, like, but just understand that after 3 weeks, it's literally just another car in your garage, and it's not going to give you anything more than just something cool. If chicks look at you, you know what I'm saying? Like that's pretty much it. But as far as my why, Corey, there's probably a couple things. I really don't have like an arching like why. I just think I've been like this my entire life, and then I had a life experience that really set me back almost, but it fueled me for what I'm doing today. And so at 20 years old, I had a kidney transplant. I have a rare kidney disease called C3G, and I just remember being laid up in the hospital thinking like this is the last thing I ever want to have happen again. And so I made it out of that situation, luckily, and so it was so much pain that I correlated into like fire. Going back to your logo, where I just got out of that thing and recovered, and I just been going really at it every single day since then.
Love it, dude. Rye, that was my last question. Do you have anything to wrap it up?
You beat me to it. Mine was going to be the why. And dude, I love it. I knew there'd be something, that intrinsic fire, right? That propels you. And I'm glad we got there and I'm glad we ended there. But I will say, Chase, genuinely, you never know what you're going to get in an interview, right? And you never know the people you're going to speak with. And it's just so interesting. You can read a bio and you see someone online, but it's been a pleasure to get to know you. And I think your students are lucky to have you. I think I'm happy to know you now. And I'm sure there's going to be things we can get involved with in the future, which is great. But it's just a breath of fresh air to see a young guy with his head on so straight that you're going to impact not only your kids' lives, but their kids and your parents. Like, dude, just watching you, man, like it's probably so cool for them. You mentioned, all the things in Florida that you guys have going on and everything you're doing, man. So I think you just be extremely proud of yourself for what you've done at a young age, but you're not the guy that is selfish and holding it all in. I love that you're giving back and showing other people what's possible, because that's what makes the world go round. And that's what Corey and I have realized on this journey is like, the more you give in this world, the more you're going to get. And half the time when you get something, it just like the car, it doesn't mean half as much as getting the text or the note that said you changed my life. And that is what, it just drives me, man. Like I've gotten a note, I've gotten DMs, and like and then you buy the car and you're like, fuck, screw the car, dude. Like that, like I framed the note, you know what I mean? So there's just something about it, man. You're a good person. I think you're getting everything you deserve, and just keep giving and giving and giving, man. And so thank you for giving us a bunch of nuggets on this episode. I think it's very tactful, inspiring for people to see what you can do with some grit, some integrity, and some discipline along the way, and just how your life can unfold, man. So kudos to you. It's a pleasure getting to know you. And thanks for joining us.
Ryan, Corey, thank you for having me. This has been a blessing to just chat it up. It's good to
Love
know
it,
you
dude.
guys.
Appreciate it, brother. If people want to learn more about you, they want to, connect with you, network, maybe join CMG University, especially if they're on like the business building and the landscape construction side. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
That would be on my Instagram, Chase_Gallagher. You can click the link in my bio. A lot of my stuff is there. You can go on my YouTube. It's just my name across the board: TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google, whatever it may be.
Love it, man. Thanks so much for taking some time today. Get back to the nice weather in Tampa. We appreciate it.
I will.